Okay, so this should be a lot of fun. For those of you that don't know me, Brian Hawkins, Head of Optimization Technology here at AdSwerve. I am also the former CEO and founder of Mia Prova, an optimization management platform, former senior partner at Analytics Demystified, and co-author of Adobe Target Classroom in the book. So excited to geek out today on a topic that is near and dear to my heart, the ability to incorporate additional data for your optimization program. So, Mia Prova, we've got dozens of companies around the world using our application to, manage their optimization program. Here you can see, in this demo account, we've got 80 live activities that are being managed. Mia Prova fully supports any optimization solution that uses data from GA4, from Adobe Target, CJA. But we're rooted in Adobe Target. The majority of our customers leverage Adobe Target. And so we get to see all walks of life. Optimization programs that are relatively small, where they've got like a dozen or so, or we even got a few or one or two that have like under 10 live activities going on. And on average, we have around 100 live activities per customer. We have several that are in the hundreds, and we just onboarded a client recently that has over 1,200 live activities in their Adobe Target account. So we get to see lots of really cool things. And one of the things that we've learned in just the community that we are in is that those optimization programs that have their testing program centered around who or what audience is arriving at the test location are much more successful in terms of test volume, but also in learnings and real value for their organization. So as a generic example, you can be a company where okay, let's run an A/B test on our homepage. And yes, that's valuable and there's definitely value to be had. But if you take a step back and if you have established segments or audiences that the organization cares about, and then you kind of shift, and instead of running a generic homepage test to everyone that comes to the page, you have targeted tests that are for those particular audiences. It's going to be considerably valuable. The majority of Mia Prova customers are already living in that world where their testing roadmaps are targeted to different audiences. They're trying to advance their digital consumers along a journey. Or Mia Prova customers are kind of relatively new and they want to leverage Mia Prova and Mia Prova's journey framework to get to that level, to be able to kind of have dozens of tests running at any point in time to different audiences that are going on to the site. So we had a customer recently who making really, really strategic use of Adobe Target profiles. One of the things that is the most valuable thing, in my opinion, to the Adobe Target platform is the Adobe Target profile. They are making killer use of it. They're also making use of A for T audiences from Adobe Analytics. But they've been so successful for all of this that they wanted to start leveraging some data from their internal data warehouse. They were happen to use BigQuery. And so we geek out and we support all our clients with their different optimization efforts here at AdSwerve. And so we help them put together something in place leveraging Hightouch. Hightouch is the CDP that they're using. And I thought it'd be kind of helpful to put together some slides to walk you all through what we put in place, what's available for you within Adobe Target. So it's pretty cool. So I'll kind of show you how it all comes together. So data warehouses are often the source of truth. And so Mia Prova is not playing any role here in terms of facilitating. This is all about showing Hightouch and Adobe Target working together. But this is for a Mia Prova customer within here. And so organizations can, there's lots of different data warehouses out there. Snowflake, BigQuery, Databricks are kind of the most popular. And so here's the goal here is to be able to kind of have data from whatever your data warehouse you're using flow into Adobe Target. And that's exactly kind of what we've outlined within here. And so organizations that leverage Adobe Target typically have four options available to it. Okay, so Adobe Target, very cool. It has an offline API where you can basically use this API and upload, your scripts or upload your CSV files with data that's maps to this ID. It's very cool. I've used it for many, many years, and it's something that a lot of companies make use of. Second option, Mia Prova. So Mia Prova, we actually like to geek out, and so we put together this little bulk upload utility within here where you can download a template, and then upload it, provide your Adobe Target client ID. So it's like a UI that is sitting on top of Adobe Target's offline API within here. So this tool here is making use of the same functionality that Adobe is doing here. We just built a little utility on top of it. This is a fun little thing, and it's helpful for emergencies, a quick way to get data to Adobe Target. But your optimization program should not be using these little utilities that are kind of open on the market, that sort of thing, to do it. Another way that is supported within Mia Prova that is worth highlighting within here is we have this integration with BigQuery. You can see all the different lovely tools that Mia Prova integrates with. You can have audiences within Mia Prova. You connect to to BigQuery, what table you're using. Mia Prova can bring and share those audiences on a daily basis within here. There's not much sophistication to this. We are using the same Adobe Target offline profile API and just having it kind of updated manually. We don't offer additional scheduling, anything along those lines within here. We just offer the ability to have something do once a day, upload data to Adobe Target. It works. We've got, I think, probably a handful of companies that are making use of this, but there's not much sophistication over and above that. Okay, the big things within Hightouch here. So I wanted to highlight the two components within Hightouch and to show you them because it's pretty cool. Yeah, and especially this personalization API approach that it was a lot of fun to kind of play with. And I've got actually a real example for you. Okay, so Hightouch as a destination. Okay, I should kind of take a step back and say, no matter what approach you're using, you need to make sure that the data that's offline maps to data that's being communicated and sent to Adobe Target. Okay. Now, I see lots of different examples out there, but I wanted to show you kind of this. Disney, Mickey Mouse. This is Mia Prova's free Chrome extension that we put out for the Target community. And I leave it open. And we recently went to Disney not too long ago for my mom's birthday. And so I had this open. I noticed, oh my God, go Disney. You are kicking butt. Because here you can see Disney is actually giving Adobe Target their visitor ID. This is Disney's visitor ID that they're using, which is pretty cool. This is Adobe Target's visitor ID, and for those Adobe folks, they're familiar with this. This is the ECID, the common ID shared across Adobe solutions. So, in any of these approaches within here to get data within here, you need to either have that offline data use Adobe Target's ID, which is cool, but you should really align your program around your first-party ID. That's one of the big differentiators of Adobe Target compared to other solutions. If you give Adobe Target your ID, boom, their ID is deprecated, and everything is centered around your visitor ID, which is cross-device, things like that, which is pretty freaking cool. And here you can kind of see some of the data that Disney is using in context of Adobe, their visitor ID. So these are wonderful different attributes that they're using for their optimization program to do within here, which is pretty exciting to see, and is a great example of what we did and helped this customer do with Hightouch. Okay, so common ID is across the offline data or the data in the warehouse, and that ID is being communicated to Adobe Target. So within Hightouch, this particular customer had data in BigQuery that they wanted to use and wanted to have like their governance and around within here. And so this is Hightouch where I should take a step back, where you can kind of, Manage sources, manage destinations, syncs. It's a CDP. So here I already have a source, BigQuery, but you can have, if they were using, let's say, Snowflake or Databricks, that would just be the source of data where it's going to be handed off to Adobe Target. Pretty cool. Okay, so we have the source of data in this example, BigQuery, which is connected to my BigQuery account within here. I'll actually show it to you. So this is my BigQuery instance within here. This is an example table. I'm showing you this, going to be kind of on the fly. So this is a table. Let's preview some of the data within it. So here you can see the user ID, the same user ID given to Adobe Target, and a bunch of different attributes. What city they're in, device type. I'm sure there'll be offline data, loyalty points, credit score, income bracket, household size, marital status, education level. Sexy data that would be really, really cool to have in Adobe Target for optimization efforts, or even for like use in automated personalization. So this is an example. This isn't the data this particular organization has or had. This is me putting a table within BigQuery for demoing purposes within here. So here's this wonderful data set within BigQuery. I have Hightouch connected here, or BigQuery connected to my Hightouch within there, which is pretty cool. Okay, so now there's the BigQuery. Now here's what I want to kind of show you. Let me jump back to Hightouch here really quick. So within the activation, we have two ways to do this within Hightouch, as I highlighted within here. Adobe Target as a destination. Okay, let me show you what that looks like. So this is Adobe Target as a destination within here. So this is the more kind of like manual. You configure, you can update, upsert, you can kind of do all, you can schedule this. And so what this approach is Adobe Target for a destination within here, Adobe Target as a destination. What we're doing here is we're taking the data that we configured within BigQuery and scheduling it. Do we want to have it on an interval? Do we want a custom occurrence or manual? We can kind of configure exactly what data, what's the keys that match to the keys within Adobe Target. You don't have to update the entire table. You can do some of the columns within there. So this is where the configuration takes place within here. And so based off of these particular, whatever you schedule it, what's going to happen is this approach, this Hightouch Adobe Target as a destination, is going to make use of the same Adobe Target offline API. You get governance, you get an application that manages it for you. And as data gets updated in BigQuery, based off of your configuration within Hightouch, that data will be updated in Adobe Target, which is pretty cool. We could probably see some of that within here. I've used this within here. So profile. I'd have to update this here. Let's see here. The data isn't syncing, but these profile attributes, I'm using this method within here, and I'll show you kind of ways and differentiate why you want to use this as an approach as well. So this is really, really cool. This is something that a lot of organizations are going to make valuable use of. This is the fun one that I want to kind of talk to you guys about here, the personalization API. And this is the approach the company landed on. I also think they're using both. You can also use both at the same time. And there's good reasons for that. And so the personalization API, it's not making use of the Adobe Target's offline API, which is incredibly powerful. This offline API, very cool. This thing does, it makes a call to the to Hightouch to extract the data. And I'll show you how this all kind of works. So here's the second sync. This is where the second destination, where we're taking BigQuery data set and we're giving it to the personalization API. And so we kind of make all the configurations that are there when we want this to update to the personalization API, and you can see the run history and any alerts and things like that with it. Now, once this data set is at the personalization API, then it's made available for extraction and passed to Adobe Target. So here's a real example. I put this all together with a little help of some vibe coding. Okay, so here, page load, I've got a visitor ID. So let's just use this one, AYTWXW1V. This is the first party ID. So this is the equivalent of Disney's ID within here. And so in BigQuery is a bunch of data that's mapped to this ID. And so I'm going to fetch the Hightouch record. And so we can see, if I were to go into BigQuery, we can see that these are the different attributes that's available for this particular ID. Really, really cool. Now let's call Adobe Target. Boom. What we're doing is we're hitting Adobe Target and we're passing along this information to Adobe Target for use. And because it's a profile attribute, we can use it anywhere else where Adobe Target is in place, where this is the particular domain in place. Here you can kind of see it in action on the fly. You can see all the different profile attributes that are associated with this ID. And you can see there's the Adobe Target ID. I probably didn't do the mapping there correctly for that. But here you can see the Adobe Target server call. Boom! Look at all this beautiful, sexy data that's now available for people to use within audiences. So I built this example to kind of demo the handoff, right? So you call, Hightouch is called, and then Adobe Target is called subsequently thereafter. This is not a kind of, I wanted to create like a real world scenario for companies. And so I've got this other demo that's here on the site. Let me kind of get this all queued up here. Okay. So on this page, I have the Target Global Mbox and the Hightouch server call. The Adobe Target server call, Mbox called Hightouch, I named it. Okay, so now Hightouch is taking place as soon as the page loads. Hightouch it gets the first party ID. This is the first party ID that Hightouch is using. Now I could tell Adobe Target, do not make its call until Hightouch responds. Hightouch is pretty fast. I mean, I was getting things. Look at this. So 277 milliseconds. Let me refresh this. Let me run the end-to-end demo. 263. You can see Adobe Target. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to slow Adobe Target. Adobe Target has a global edge network, so it's wicked fast in terms of the latency. This I've seen very impressive times as well, but I didn't want to introduce a blocker to Adobe Target, since Adobe Target is going to be responsible for the the visitor's experience, and I didn't want to delay anything which could impact the test results. And so there's a few different ways that you can kind of approach this. And what I did here, I configured Adobe Target to trigger a server call, this Mbox call, after Hightouch responds back to the page. I did see that sometimes Hightouch responded before the global Mbox came back, but I didn't need to, like I said, kind of delay things within there. And so you can see here let's see if it showed up here. Nope, we didn't see that data. But the Hightouch Mbox, what it did is it passed all of this data as profile attributes. So this happened, client side. You can configure this to happen server side. But once this Adobe Target data is given to Adobe Target, we no longer need to call the personalization API that Hightouch provides, because it's a profile attribute. You can depends how often the data changes. This is a real-time pull of the data within here. So if the data that you're sending to Adobe Target by way of the personalization API from Hightouch is very, very fluid. Think of things like inventory or things with like time expiry or things of that nature. Then yeah, it probably makes sense to call Hightouch more often. It'll be very, very valuable in that regard. And so going back to that company that we helped get this in place, it might make sense to use both approaches. If you've got Hightouch and you've got some data that's pretty static, then use the syncing method here, where we're basically Adobe Target as a destination, where it's using the offline API. It's basically updating it based off of whatever schedule you want. But if the data is very, very fluid and needs to be the most current and up to date, and you want to have it for that impression or the second impression, you're definitely going to want to use the personalization API within there. And so to close, these are the 4 options, like I said, that makes available. The offline API, very cool, fun to play with. We give you the bulk up later, the BigQuery integration. But these are the 2 that I walked through within here with a more of a focus on the Hightouch personalization API. If there's any questions, kind of hit us up, AdSwerve. We can help with any of your optimization efforts, integrations with various technologies. And thank you.